On the side of a mountain in southern New York State are hundreds of stone piles. They're located a few feet from an ancient Native American trail and a few miles from an even older trail that goes over the southern mountains. For years, people have been coming by to look at these things and wondering, what are they? Well, I'll tell you what they are today. Some of these structures are very nicely built. Others are in various states of disrepair. But these stone piles have a certain regularity to them. They're always built on base boulders. The rocks slant inwards. They're located on the eastern slope of hillsides, and there's always a water source nearby. The novice looking at these stone piles would simply say, well, they're field clearance. This is not farm territory, this is not farmland, and there's no evidence of any kind of agriculture right around this region. They're placement holders. They're recognizing something very special. And the first settlers talked about them. They wrote about these things. In fact, many of them used some of these stones as foundation stones for their homes. A nice source of rock, actually. Stone piles are found all around the world. They're also called cairns, C-A-R-N-S, cairns. And every culture apparently had these things. Again, when the first settlers got to this shore, American shore, this was the most noticeable thing on the East Coast, these piles of rock. And they didn't know what to think. There was lots of speculation. Well, my team got together a number of years ago and excavated one of these stone piles and found some rather extraordinary things. For the most part, the builders of these stone piles used an angular method, that is, the stones, flat slabs, face inwards, and the progressing weight on top of each stone essentially kept the whole thing together. And a flat base stone was there to keep everything level and not sink into the continuing moist soil that in this area you get lots of pit depressions because of old trees and the spongy nature of the soil, as it were. Many times next to a stone pile you find an elliptical shaped mound of earth. In fact, it's rather common. So we're left with the question, what are these things? It turns out they're burial markers. Below the large slab of stone, the base rock, are skeletons. People were buried here. This was a site where people would come, apparently, on this old Native American trail to visit, perhaps, their loved ones and to bury recently deceased. Now, this particular spot has been here for, we think, at least close to 1,000 years. Now, some of these things have been repaired, clearly, you can see that, but many of them are in disrepair. Now, how do I know this? A few years ago, we removed the soil on one of these elliptical shaped mounds of earth and found something rather startling. It's important to understand that this is a sacred spot. This is a place where lots of people came to bury their dead. They mourned their dead. They cried. They laughed. They thought back to the spirit of the person. But in this one area, it's a cemetery, essentially. It's one of the few areas where we know lots of Native Americans were put to rest in the ground, but also a place that is somewhat permanent with markers. And there are these structures, these stone piles, all across the East Coast. You don't find them that much west of the Mississippi, but all in the eastern quadrant of this country you find these. Again, this is in New York State, southern New York State, about 2 hours north of New York City, a few hours west of the Hudson, an hour or so east of the Delaware River, right in the middle area. Now, people fail to forget or fail to remember that this area was populated with lots and lots of people. When we look at our current society with dollar stores and Kohl's and Walmarts and so forth and asphalt, it's hard to understand that people were living here off the land. Now, this is an extraordinarily fertile area to live in. There's a swamp nearby called the Basha Kill, and it's an area that was populated and still is populated with lots of fowl, lots of fish and so forth. Very easy pickings, as it were, if you know what you're doing. Lots of plants in the region to forage material for. But there were hundreds of people living here, so these people had to get rid of their dead. And this is one of the techniques that they utilized to bury their dead, but also remember their dead. This is Sal Trento signing off from the mysterious stone pile site in southern New York State. Until next time, take care. So if you wander around the fields, wherever you are, and you come across lots of stone piles, remember, they're probably not field clearance, particularly if they're on the eastern slope of mountains, on a base stone, near a source of water. They're probably some type of burial marker. So give it wide berth.
If you enjoyed this episode, give it a like, and do subscribe to the channel by pressing the button below. Until next time, Sal Trento with Mysterious Places.